What's up, guys? This is Red Sea Gaming Life, coming back with another video about the things I wish I knew before I started modding my Arcade1Up cabinet with RetroPie and using a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. So just wanted to get into it. Basically, I get a lot of questions on what build I'm using. This build that I'm using is called Voldemort. 64 gig build, has arcade games, has systems on there. I deleted some games that were on there that I knew I wasn't gonna play, and I added some games that are on there that I wanted that weren't initially on the build. But this build is pretty much optimized for the Arcade1Up screen. For the most part, every emulator is optimized for it. When they made it for this specifically. So the arcade has about 2,300 games. Atari has 630. Atari 7800 has 58. Coleco 140. Game & Watch 55. Game Boy 562. Game Boy Advance 1036. Master System 271. Genesis 766. This one doesn't come with N64, but I added N64 on there. I just added I'm in a testing phase right now with N64. Pretty much the two games that run really good are F-Zero and Mario Kart. Rave Race, it's a little laggy because I really didn't want to overclock my Pi. But I might look into that if I could overclock it a little bit to get a couple more games running, which I heard has a lot of better, way better performance if you just overclock it a little bit. But we'll see how it goes. Not sure if I'm gonna do that yet. Neo Geo has 141. Nintendo has 782. PlayStation is not initially on this build for Voldemort. This is 64 gigabyte. I believe there's a 128 gigabyte one that has PlayStation on it, but this one didn't. So I deleted Scum. There was Scum VM on here. I deleted all that because I don't use that. I wasn't interested in that, so I put PlayStation on there. I put a few of the games I felt were necessary to be on the arcade cabinet. Obviously, this RetroPie menu. Sega 32X has 32. Sega CD has 55. Super NES has a little bit less than 785, but I added a couple hacked games on there. TurboGrafx 16, 94. And these are just the collections. CPS 1, it's like Street Fighter and games like that, 1944. That's on there. So CPS 3, Mario collection, just a collection of all the Marios, Sonics. My collection's kind of like a shortcut to the most popular arcade games. And altogether, I have 7,732 games on the Raspberry Pi. So, like I said, there's screensavers on here, custom screensavers. So if you hit the select button, which is the coin button or my select button down here, it brings it up automatically, or it turns on if you haven't touched the Pi. If you haven't touched it in a minute or two, I'm not sure exactly, but then the screen starts doing it randomly. And this is already preloaded on the image. Okay, next I want to talk about the PlayStation emulator. When you first get it, I recommend go into the RetroPie setup and activate video smoothing. Set it to true. It'll be set to false automatically. Just set it to true, and that'll clear up anything that any issues that you have with visuals. You can use any other filter that you want, but that's not a filter. That's just a smoothing thing. So it'll clear it right up, and your PlayStation games will look way better. And you don't need to mess with anything else. And then another thing I recommend doing when you start a game is go into the games menu or the options and configure your controls. Right now I have my control set up as X, O, square, triangle, and then L1, R1, start, and that's select. This button I use it for if I need to dedicate another button for R2 or L2, R2. But most PlayStation 1 games, they never even utilize that as much as they do nowadays. So, but if there is a game that you did need to utilize it, you can definitely map it within that game. Most games have that option. Certain games don't, but the games that don't, the layout will be fine for you. And then you can always adjust it in RetroArch. And if you don't know how to, just look it up on YouTube or even on the group. They'll be able to help you on any group or any forums that you go to. So right here, if you go down to options, this is one game that has R2 and L2. So you go down to controllers, and so it has the layout right here. So normally, this is going to be a problem. We don't have an R2 button. And if you don't have a button like I do, and you just have the basic, the regular select button down here and this top, you're going to be kind of screwed. You're going to say, how the heck are you going to block? So what I would recommend doing is just hitting whatever button you want. So I recommend, if it's a low block, set it to R1. If it was a regular controller, you would do it differently. But low block R1, high block, set it to L1 because it's high right here. And then you can set up your other buttons here, and everything will be good. And then make sure, if it's two players, you want to set the other side up as well. So you do the same thing. You do R1, L1, and then you're good. Everything else is fine. See, they don't have DualShock or nothing like that, but even the DualShock ones, they still work with joysticks. So now all you do is go down and hit X on back. You go to hit back. Remember, triangles here, so this is your back button now once you're in the game. And then I would recommend going to RetroArch at this moment and saving your game. Just saving it, do a save state on this, so that way the next time you load it up, just do a load state. All your settings will be saved. And go to arcade, 1 player, 2 players, whatever you want. No, let's do 2 players, just so we can. This game was one of my favorite games growing up. I love it so much. I have it on PlayStation 1, I have it on Dreamcast, I have it on N64. And so without video smoothing, it'll look way worse than this. But this doesn't even look bad if you remember how PlayStation 1 looked. And if you ever played it without this video smoothing on, you'll see. So press the button here. And to activate your rumble, you just press L1 R1, and then to activate your like the flurry, rumble flurry, you just press these 2 buttons. But the game runs perfect. Most PlayStation 1 games run perfectly. At least all the ones I have run perfect. So that's PlayStation right there. And like I said, doing video smoothing does not kill performance at all. It runs every game that I have at least perfectly, and it looks really good. And Mortal Kombat Trilogy is pretty good too. So the next thing I want to talk about is the N64 emulator. Alright, so when I first wanted to load N64, I knew most games weren't compatible or didn't run good, so I just wanted a couple games, core games that I wanted to have on my arcade unit. I know F-Zero runs pretty good, and Mario Kart runs pretty good, but if you're trying to figure out what emulator to use, especially since this build doesn't come with it ready, you have to install it manually. Recommend installing Modding 64 Plus. Install that one. Don't install the retro version. That version, pretty much the games are unplayable. But the only thing is, when you do the Modding 64 Plus, if you install it after you configure emulation station, the input to emulation station, none of your controls will work. The only ones that would work would be your start buttons, your start button and your select button, and that would just get you out the game. So when you'll start the game, you won't be able to move, you won't be able to do gas or anything. So and I couldn't find anywhere online to try to fix it until I came across one video on YouTube that I kind of like ran into on accident, and I kind of figured out how to do it. There's two ways to do it, but I came across another resolution that was way simpler, and I felt stupid afterwards. But basically what you have to do is, once you have the emulator downloaded and installed, you have your games installed, go in emulation station, and go to configure input. Configure your inputs again like you normally did when you first started your RetroPie and emulation station. Just reconfigure it. You don't even have to do the second one. You can do just the first player one. So when you do that, you go into your emulator, and recommend also, on a side note, look at the compatibility list on, I think it's GitHub on RetroPie. Let me lower that. There's a compatibility list that tells you which emulator to use for which game, and I think this one uses Modding 64 Plus, but you have to choose the video plugin. So when you use the video plugin, you have to choose GLES 2 N64, I believe, and then don't use the high res one. You want to use that one, and then choose the first resolution option, which is, I think, CEA1. It's not going to fill up the whole screen, but it's N64 running like good, at least for these games, and that's really all I care about. I want to get a few more going, but sometimes the menus might be a little laggy on certain games, but the gameplay is fine. And then you don't have to worry about running out of buttons for N64. See, I'm trying to do this with one hand, so I know I suck with one hand. But you can see it runs pretty good. Even the sound doesn't sound bad. But all your necessary buttons are there. Your turbo button, your turbo buttons, and I should have turbo now once I pass this. There you go. Alright, I'm about to blow up here. But these buttons are your left and right. So see, and then this is the games I played so far. They're mapped perfectly once you do the emulation station input setup. And like I said, go to your compatibility list on GitHub for RetroPie for N64, and it'll tell you which emulator to use. And I always recommend doing the lowest settings for everything. Don't do it on 1080p, because unless you have an overclocked Pi, don't do it on 1080p, because it's going to be super laggy and might be even unplayable. So I have everything on the lowest settings. There's an even lower setting for standard definition, NTSC, but do not pick that option because your monitor won't recognize it and it'll just turn off. But if that happens, all you gotta do is just press start and select. It'll exit back to RetroPie, and then change the emulator again. If you guys have any questions about that, just leave a comment and let me know, and I'll help you out. Because it was very frustrating for me to figure out at first. Ooh, what the hell happened? Alright, so... oh man. Okay, so this next one is going to be about the filters for arcade, for main, Final Burn Alpha. Basically, it's going to have to be on a game-by-game basis, but I think I found a good filter for you guys that if you want to replicate the old school arcade TV CRT look without it being overbearing or, you know, underwhelming. I found a good in-between. So if you start the game, my filter should be automatic loaded up, which it is. So you see it. I don't know how well it comes across on here, but you can see. Let's see. So you can see, like, it has the lines on it. Let's start it. Alright, so when you first start it, it's not going to have control. So what you want to do is look at your shaders first. Look at your shaders, and this is the shader I'm using, by the way. It's called Z-Fast CRT Curve. And then you go to parameters. And actually, it's not even set right, so set that to 1. And what that does is it makes the curvature look. So if you do it, if you set the number high, it makes that, it makes it go like that. So if you do it, it makes it a little bit smaller. And I just like it to be right at the edge, so it gives it that look. Corner I leave it, and on this one I lower that to 150, because 150 basically, or 1.5 basically makes it a little bit brighter, because you saw when you started it, it looked a little bit dark. So I recommend hit save shader preset as. If you just press the A button on that, just move the joystick over and it'll make a number, and just press A and it'll save that. So when you want to load your preset, you just go here and it'll load. So do that, keep these settings the same, then hit apply changes. I mean, if you go back out into it, now it's a little bit brighter and it looks better, and the gas still works. Now if you look at this, nothing's working, because I think I had to redo my N64 emulator, so it changed this again. It's an easy fix. So if you run into this problem, I'm glad it came up. Just do this. Go back into the menu. Hit back. Go down to settings. Well, I'm sorry. Go down to settings. Go down to input. Go all the way down to user bindings. User 1. Everything is fine. Everything here is good. You don't need, normally you would go here to change left, right, up, down, but you see right here it says it's unavailable in this game. So you only want to look at the things that are available, like coin. So that's 7, which is my select button. Start is my start button. 6. So all you want to do is, everything here is already set. There's nothing there. So right here it says steering. So what you want to do is, you want to hit the button A, and it says right. Then just move your joystick to the right. On this one, do the same thing. Hit it, it says left. Move it to the left. And you're done. Go back out. If it's a 2-player game, you want to do it down to 2-player, do it for that one. But there's a couple games you have to re-establish the binds. Most games work flawlessly without it, but if that happens, you just go in there, look for that, change it. So you go back out. What I like to do is I like to save current configuration. I like doing that, so that way next time I go into it, has all my settings set up to it. So now if you go into it, look at this, I got control. It works perfectly. So that's the easy way to do it. Instead of going into your configuration file over on the terminal and trying to figure out what buttons what and all this, just do it within RetroPie, because when you want to play, you want to play. You don't want to go mess with your computer or anything like that. But the scan lines look good. It makes the graphics to me look better, look more clearer. And then the curvature has a subtlety about it. Then it doesn't look like it's overbearing or anything like that. And you can set this up to your preference, but that's the filter I'm using if you guys want to use it. And now the next thing I want to talk about is something that I don't think enough people are talking about or even know that's available, is your saves, your high score saves. A lot of people let me write my name. A lot of people don't know that RetroPie and Emulation Station and all this setup can save your high scores, but most of the time, depending on the image, it's disabled. So I want to show you guys, or I'll tell you guys. I'm not going to show you because it's a little hands-on and a little bit involves a little bit too much for me to even show you right now, because my computer's not working at the moment. But basically, let me go back out. Alright, so when you start a game and when you play an arcade game, you play it and you have a high score, you enter your initials. The next time you play it, it's not there. It's like nothing. See, that's my high score from days ago when I played it, and it wasn't activated by itself. So there's, I think, Final Burn Alpha was activated. One of the emulators was activated, but like MAME 2003 wasn't activated. Like all the cores weren't activated. So I found out it was really cool to they even had that option, which made it more authentic to have an arcade system. Because I'm like, wow, like we can keep this forever. So I obviously am not gonna even be able to try to do this, but basically, what I did it one hand. So basically, online on YouTube, if you search how to enable high scores on RetroPie or Emulation Stations, put anything like that, there's a guy that he made a video, easy video to follow. He does one extra step that you don't necessarily have to do, but basically you have to go into the file, I believe it's the ROMs folder, and in the ROMs folder you go to the folder that says high, which means high score, and then you need to open it up with a notepad editor. So I have Notepad++, so you want to go into that and basically edit the file and look for where the emulator's name, where it says MAME 2003, and it'll say disabled, high score disabled. You want to erase that line and you want to put enabled. Just type in enabled in that, and then you want to find all the emulators. It's like 3,000 lines of text. You got to find it and find, I think it's maybe 3 or 4 emulators. One of them is activated already, but just take your time, try to find it. There's Final Burn Alpha in there. You got to activate enabled and all that stuff. Once you do that, basically all your high scores will save automatically, and then you can see it saving when you're in the terminal. You can see it right away saving as you exit the game. So you know, this is one aspect of this that I think is really cool, because you know, you have friends over, you know, one week, and then you have another pair of friends next week, or you know, more friends coming over later on, and they can see their scores on there. So yeah, it's super cool, and I don't think enough people are talking about that. So just search that video. I'll try to link it in the description below, because I want to give them credit. And anything I talked about in this video, I'll try to find the links to all the videos. See, there I go, right there. CS baby, that's me. So I'll try to link everything so that way you guys can easily find it. But that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. I'm making these little videos as I go along, trying to modify my arcade, just to help you guys out, because I'm sure if I had a question about it, I'm sure somebody else also had a question about it. So if I can help you guys, because I'm fairly new to this, I'm trying to learn it along with you guys. So appreciate for you guys watching it. I know it ain't the most professional video, but thanks anyways. See you later. Peace.